But go ahead, Hooker. What's your best and worst?
Yeah, I'm going to just start with the quarterback and what I've seen through two days, which is not a lot of bad. I mean, sure, there's been a couple missed throws here and there, but when I hear player or now coach, multiple coaches now that we've heard from Shane Waldron talk today, talk about how Caleb Williams came back from the break a little bit sharper and leveled up, as Matt Eberflus has been saying. But we heard it from DeAndre Swift today too, saying that he's noticed it as well. I'm seeing those statements. So it's good to hear those things, but I always want to see stuff like that backed up on the practice field. And I continue to see that. The results haven't been perfect on every play, nor should you expect them to be. But in terms of pre-snap huddle, seemingly having control over what is being called by the offensive coordinator, I would say the grand majority, with a couple slip-ups here and there, I think there was one false start today, has been pretty clean. And I love seeing that early on in camp because we've talked about it. We talked about it in OTAs. I think we're all tired in Chicago of the defense just being way ahead of the offense. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth so far, maybe a slight advantage to the defenses, which should probably be where it should be, but both sides are making plays. And I also like what I'm seeing. We go a little bit more in depth in this a little bit later on. Can't describe the plays, obviously. Those are against the rules of what we're allowed to talk about in closed practices. But I'll just say this. I like that I'm seeing plays that are catered to Caleb Williams' strengths. I'm seeing that with my own eyes. It's a really good start for me through 2 days of practice, both in terms of what I'm seeing from Caleb and what I'm seeing from the offensive coordinator drawing things up for this very talented quarterback. In terms of my worst today, second straight day where my worst isn't necessarily really, really bad. For a second, I was worried, but we did see Tremaine Edmunds get his foot sort of caught up in the turf at one point today. It seemed like on a cut, I believe, by Cole Kmet after a catch. And he walked off gingerly. I was a little worried. He was over in the corner working with the trainers, but he did return to practice. So that turned out to be apparently not a big deal. Of course, we'll see if he's out there tomorrow. Sometimes that happens. And I think we've seen Matt Eberflus be relatively cautious with injuries, but still not great to see your highest paid linebacker go limp off the field. But the good news is he came back. Remember, Tremaine Edmunds missed a lot of time in camp last year, and a lot of guys missed a lot of time in camp. And we thought that the defense was one of the reasons why the defense got off to a slow start. So I know guys are going to miss time here and there, but I just don't want to see any extended absences from some of the key players.
All fair. I gotta be honest, I missed the Tremaine thing, so I'm glad because my anxiety didn't need that. As I just it's been an interesting day around these parts. But I have like honorable mentions today as we wait for Nick, so I'm just gonna give you a deep dive here. But my best is kind of along your lines too. I like the way the ball is being spread around offensively. Last year, and before that. Listen, when it was Trubisky, the ball was going to A-Rob. When it was Justin, the ball was going to DJ. And I'm not even putting that on Mitch or Justin. There just wasn't a lot of talent around. The ball is being spread around more. DJ sure is getting his fair share, but the best throw of the day today, the one that stood out, was the bomb to Tyler Scott. That was good to see. Keenan's getting his touch. The backs are getting the ball a lot. So we do see what you're talking about, which is an offense, I think, catered to Caleb and also an offense catered to a very early Caleb in trying to make it easy for him to be able, or easier for him to move the ball down the field. So I liked how it's being spread around as well. Shout out to Tyreek Stevenson, who gets an honorary best today. He's back there catching punts. He did that 12 times in his college career between Miami and Georgia. A dark horse candidate to be the guy. He hasn't really looked great doing it, but I like the fact that he's stepping into that role. It is something that he's done. Also, phenomenal pick on Caleb. It was a great play. Kevin Byard called it clean. So this is a guy going into his second year who I've got some serious high hopes for. My worst goes along those lines, which on the pick, Caleb held it too long, man. He was trying to make a play. He's looking left. He's looking down the middle. Then finally he's throwing it. I think it was off his back foot. It looked like to me. And Tyreek, yes, great play on it. And I did it like Shane Waldron's explanation that it was third down. It was the end of the half. It was a good time to take a risk, which all of that. So he's trying to force one in there so they can get a field goal. That all adds up well. But nonetheless, we saw it in OTAs a bunch where he's kind of holding on to it. He's running out of bounds. And on that play, it was the ball was in his hands just a little bit too long. And here's an unfair worst, Hoge, and I don't think it matters. But I got to tell you, for somebody who loves press conferences and likes to be entertained, that is not Shane Waldron's thing. He is pretty bland. I don't know if you get him away from that, if he's a lot different, but as far as having an interesting guy detailing what's going on with the Bears offense, that ain't his game. And I never find myself checking Twitter while someone's talking up there today. And I had to stop myself, stop looking at what's going on elsewhere, pay attention to the offensive coordinator. I hope that's not how he is in front of the group. But Shane's got he's got a long-windedness to him that's not the most interesting. So that's a little unfair. But, hey, it's podcasting. We're allowed to say these things. So that basically encompasses my best and worst. It's interesting to me, Hoge, that you said, and I saw on the walk with Nick, and you're saying it here again, that you think that the offense and defense are basically equal. And my take is that the defense is ahead. So I'm just curious if you could lay that out a little bit better as to why you think they're more sort of on equal footing.
Well, I'm just seeing a lot of back and forth. I mean, I'm just looking at my own notes from today. I got Caleb hitting a deep shot to Tyler Scott that I think you just mentioned. That was a play that got a lot of attention today. I got a check mark next to 13 on a completion, check mark next to 85. Sidearm throw to DJ Moore, which I love seeing. And I know for the Justin Fields people out there that still exist, I'm sorry, but it's just an objective fact that on those little screens to the outside where he drops up sidearm and gets it out, I bet you if you clocked it, it's at least half the time. Half the time to actually get the ball out of his hand than Justin, who always did that so methodically. And I know that it not only drove me crazy, but it drove members of that coaching staff crazy too. So that's just, you can go back and forth on some things if you want, but that is just an objective fact that is one area where the quickness in getting rid of the ball is, and that's where it's different than hanging on to it too long. Like you mentioned, when he's trying to go through some progressions, which I agree. I still think there can be some improvement there from Caleb, but when it's snap ball, get ball out on a quick play like that in the quick game, there's no doubt Caleb is already really good in that area. And I think we've seen a couple plays here where it's catching the Bears defense off guard, and it's a good approach as they try to sort through having successful downs against this very good Bears defense, this very talented Bears defense. So, yeah, I mean, again, here's another completion I got to Keenan Allen. There was the overthrow to Cole Kmet, but on the back end of that, I thought that's a play that maybe Kevin Byard could intercept, and he got his hands on it, but he didn't make the play. So I'm not necessarily seeing complete dominance of the defense over the offense, but they're getting their licks in too, like the Tyreek Stevenson interception, which was a really nice play in somewhat of a gotta have it situation for the offense. Now, originally, we didn't have the greatest vantage point today with them being on that outside field. I thought the Bears were already in field goal range on that down, and so I didn't like the interception because I thought it cost them a chance at 3 points. Now, I must have had the yardage wrong because we were pretty far away. If Shane Waldron's coming out defending the throw, then I must have had it wrong, and they weren't in field goal range yet, which is fine. And then I understand that you taking a chance there and no harm done. But it was a nice play from the defense. So I guess I'm just not. You'd love to see them score a touchdown in some of those situations, but that wasn't a touchdown situation. That was a try to get in field goal range before the end of the half, and they didn't quite get it done. So point to the defense. I guess my overall point, Carmen, is I'm just seeing a lot of back and forth. I'm not seeing dominance from either side.
And it's totally fair. It's totally fair. The defense is not quote unquote dominating. I guess I'm more putting it on like what I think it's going to look like when Caleb is really comfortable. He's not, and this is the second practice. He shouldn't be there yet. He's not there yet. So it's all good. It's all good. I'm curious, what do you think's happening with and I know this is priority number 7,406. Maybe it's a little bit above that since you are a special teams guy, but what do you think's happening with the punt returner here? Like, we're just seeing a lot of dudes back there. And maybe it's, maybe it's as simple as going chalk, but I don't know.
Well, I think just number one is that they don't really want Bayless Jones to be the guy. And that's going to cause me a heart attack if he's out there week one, trying to catch a punt. He has been doing it more clean, and he does look better in practice, but that's never really been the issue. The issue is live bullets, guys really coming at you that could kill you. Do you make the catch or not cleanly? So I think it's just that they got a lot of options to go through, and those options are going to be influenced by the roster, because at some point you can't keep 7 wide receivers, right? Because you just need 3 different returners. Like, that's unrealistic. So other guys are going to have to figure it out. Rome Odunze did not do a lot in practice today. For those wondering, he was back, but he didn't participate in team drills. He did, however, catch some punts on the side. I saw that. And that's a debate that I think the Bears will have deep into training camp, which is there an option better than exposing Rome Odunze to injury? But if not, and they got to make some tough decisions on the roster, like, that's somebody that could do it. Obviously, DeAndre Carter, who they signed. DJ Moore's taken a couple. I don't see DJ Moore in that role. That would be somewhat crazy. Dante Pettis. So it's a wide open competition right now, Carmen. I think you're gonna see a lot of guys in the 4 preseason games get a crack at it.
Yeah. And I saw somebody, I think it was Pidge, that just asked how the punter looks. And I can quote Adam Hoge for you, Pidge. I believe the words were, "That's a boomer." He's hitting boomers, man.
Yeah. But real quick on the punt return thing one more time. What you want to avoid is having to pick up Trent Taylor right before the first game of the season and using a roster spot on a guy whose job is literally just secure the football. He's not going to give you a big return. And so you're hoping to have a little bit more of a dynamic option there. But again, it just showed you last year, it came all the way down to the end and they felt like they had to go out and pick somebody else up. And hopefully that's not the case this year.
Yeah. And I don't think it will be. There's too many options in that room, but it's like, oh, wow, we're going up the food chain here. Your second DB, your third DB, however you want to rank them. Good old Tyreek is back there. And then I'm looking at it. Oh, well, he did do it 12 times. Rome's got 3 punt returns in his career at Washington, if people are curious about that. So,
yeah,
for whatever.
I believe the highlights are pretty good, but it's not a large sample size by any means.
We all silly like the mayor.